The mission. At last. Hello? Anyone home?
God be praised, my child. What can I do for you?
My name is Samantha Peters. I'm looking for a group of scientists. Their leader is called Professor Hartman. According to the notes I found in their camp, they were headed here before they disappeared.
Yes, the men you're looking for arrived here yesterday.
Finally, I've caught up. Can you take me to them?
Unfortunately, that's not possible. They are in quarantine.
Quarantine?
They are very ill. They have high fevers and are unresponsive. Nobody is allowed near them until the doctor gets here. We want to avoid any possible spread of the disease.
Can't I at least have a brief talk with Professor Hartman? It really is very important.
The professor isn't here.
Not here? Where is he?
If I've understood the men correctly, they were attacked at night and the professor was taken away.
Damn it! Do you know who attacked them?
You have to go now, my child. It is not safe here when the darkness falls.
What aren't you telling me? What is it that you're so afraid of? I'm not going anywhere until you tell me what's going on here.
Child, I just want to protect you. If I let you in, you could become infected. And outside, you are not safe from the...
Yes, not safe from what? In the scientist's notes, it says that one of them was attacked by some animal species he didn't recognize before he became ill.
That was no animal.
Well, what was it then? For Christ's sakes! Oh, forgive me.
Our Father, who art in heaven.
Listen, sister. You will now talk, or else I will break the fifth commandment. Who ambushed the scientists and dragged off the professor?
They come from above. The trees.
Locals? Rebels? Hunters?
No, not humans.
Well, what then? Not animals? Not humans? Aliens, perhaps?
The Asambosam.
Asambosam? Never heard of him.
Ancient Ashanti legends tell of strange nighttime beings that lurk in wait for their victims among the boughs of the trees. They pluck unfortunate souls from the ground using their long, sharp claws and then drag them off to their caves where they then suck the blood from their victims' bodies.
So what does your boss have to say about your believing in such blasphemous scare stories?
Scare stories? When you have lived among the Ashanti as long as I have, there's very little that appears unbelievable.
Let's reel this conversation back in from the nether regions of God's asshole and stick to the facts. I shot this photo last night. This little freak was one of a whole group sitting in the trees above me. Might this be one of your Asambosam?
Holy Maria, Mother of God, you can count your blessings that you are still alive, my child.
So these freaks really have schlepped off the professor then? Suppose it's true. Where would the Asambosam take their victims?
Into their caves.
I got that bit. Where are they exactly?
My child, you really don't want to go there.
Yes, I do. There's one hell of a real scoop of a story there for sure. And I just might be able to save the professor while I'm at it. That is, as long as these things haven't sucked him dry already.
Then I really won't be able to stop you, my child. Wait here a moment. This will be a great help to you on your reckless undertaking. Take it.
What is it?
Some intense studies of the Asambosam and Ashanti legends.
Thanks.
May the Lord watch over you.
This is where the notes begin. So there were already patients at the mission with the same symptoms as the scientists. So were these men under attack from the same creatures? Let's see. Here it is. The attackers came out of the trees and surrounded them. Interesting. There had also been similar cases in the past. The locals call the attackers the Asambosam. They're also supposed to be responsible for transmitting a virus. The old Ashanti shamans were able to control these mysterious beings and could protect themselves from the disease. The priest found himself in great danger on his quest for the antidote. The Asambosam exist. Now it's gonna get interesting. Ugh, such a lot of text. The priest stumbled across one of these Asambosam and followed him to a cave. The translation of the inscriptions at the cave entrance brought something astonishing to light. It detailed a description of a ritual which could protect against catching the Asambosam disease, and which could also cure it. They carried out the ritual, and despite no ready explanations for how, it worked. These experiences really rocked Father Samuel's concept of the world. This is where it lists what you need for the ritual and how to carry it out. It's incredible. I suppose I have to accustom myself to the notion that the Asambosam may not be pure fiction. The priest's very convincing. Unfortunately, he took his knowledge of the route to the cave to the grave with him. At least I now know how I can protect myself from the Asambosam disease. When I find out where they're hiding, I still might be able to rescue the professor. Oh, a loose page has fallen out. It's blank. I ought to concentrate on the plants I need, as listed in the diary. 1 blossom from the hyacinth is enough, according to the diary. That has to be rose herb. I need a stalk from it. Star lily. Very pretty. 1 blossom for my hair, 1 for the ritual, and 1 to stamp under my feet as an expression of rebellion. Looks like the Goethe plant. I'll pluck myself a blossom from it. A few stems of alyssum also need to go in the pot. Father Samuel's grave. Strange. No epitaph, no date of birth, no date when he died. Just the name. Oh, and 9 curious symbols chiseled into the stone. Looks like lines and trees. Great. That lets me transfer the symbols onto the paper. The pencils had it. But I've now got perfect copies of the 9 symbols on Father Samuel's gravestone. Okay, I'll carefully cut out the different symbols. I can't exactly say I'm crazy about puzzles. I'll take this part as my starting piece. map. The route to the Assambosum's caves. An empty clay bowl. Who left this here? Julius, 1767 to 1832. Here lie my mortal remains. I just wish they were yours. That's terrible. The Assambosum's caves must be near here. Hopefully the professor's doing all right. I'll light it again. Amazing how this wood has lasted. Let's decant this delicate brew. A bowl of lemonade. Home economics is for housewives. Boiling the lemonades produced a thick, sticky syrup. That should work. Gotcha. The ant stuck to the brush. Almost too easy. I had to give it a go with chopsticks. Gotcha. One more. A respectable kill. Peters, the big small game hunter. The entrance to the caves, and no sign of the professor. I'd better go in and take a look. After carrying out the written instructions for Father Samuel's protection ritual, of course. I have absolutely no inclination to go catching hideous jungle monster disease. The pot's empty. And in it goes. And in it goes. And in it goes. So, that ought to be all the ingredients. Let's see what happens. Ugh, the way that stinks, just the smoke could keep pretty much anything away from me. Smokes like my socks are on fire and smells like a wet fox. What the hell, so long as it confers improbably vast immunizing properties. Whoa, was that one of those things? A mask with eyes, mouth, and some kind of war paint. Even more passages. Really does seem to be more extensive than I first thought. There's a mask hanging on the wall here as well. The obligatory mask. It's like some kind of graphic novel. The story begins with a man choosing children from a large group. They follow him into a cave, and the door closes after them. The children continue to live there while the man teaches them to fight. The man also gives them food, and so the children gradually grow into men. But what is that? The children seem to change on the way. Their arms become longer, and they get great big fangs like predatory animals. Pretty gruesome. Out of order. The obligatory mask. Looks like one of those weird lamps they sell in the Scandinavian furnishing store around the corner back home. The poor children. If I only knew how they were changed, they'd make the story of the century. Perhaps the professor knows the answer. If he's still alive. Let's fuel this lamp and see what happens. The resin's burning. The poor children. If I only knew how they were changed, they'd make the story of the century. Perhaps the professor knows the answer. If he's still alive. Not the slightest trace of Prof. Hartman. Only more passages that lead deeper into the caves. Let's fuel this lamp and see what happens. But was that an animal? Or a human? Or... Let's fuel this lamp and see what happens. Let's fuel this lamp and see what happens. The poor children. Perhaps the professor knows the answer. Let's fuel this lamp and see what happens. The poor children. If I only knew how they were changed, they'd make the story of the century. Perhaps the professor knows the answer. If he's still alive. This mechanism with the 5 stone wheels would appear to open the door in this room. The symbols on the stone wheels look familiar. Nothing. Professor! Those damn creatures. Things are getting tight here. The battery's almost empty. Herr Professor! Professor Hartman, can you hear me? He's obviously in some considerable pain. I'm not going to be able to move him until those wounds are patched up and he's feeling better. Here, get these down, you prof. And that should keep the blood off my clothes, and, broadly speaking, inside him. At least until I get him out of here. That will have to do until we get back to the mission. Looks like Sister Sam has done a good job. Don't worry, Professor. I'll get us out of here. Hey, Professor. You look considerably less shit than you did when I found you 2 days ago. Welcome back to the land of the living.
Thank you for the expressive compliment. The sisters have looked after us quite devotedly. And of course, my deepest thanks to you for your getting me out of there, Miss...
Peters. Sam Peters.
Ah, and you are the journalist. Please forgive me for setting off without you, but the situation left me with no other choice.
Forgiven and forgotten. If you give me the story as promised.
Of course.
So you have a few minutes for me then?
Take a long look at me. Do I look like I've got anything else planned? I'm just not entirely sure that I'll be able to give you all of the answers.
Let's find out.
You want to know what the Asan Bosam are?
Spill it, Prof.
They are humans, I'm sure of that. Did you see the wall paintings in the caves?
Yeah.
The Ashanti were always a very secretive people with an extraordinary bond with nature. As with all native peoples, their living space also forms the basis for their existence. They naturally defend it with every means at their disposal. At some point, the Ashanti shaman must have realized that they would not be able to defend their lands indefinitely from outsiders. They therefore trained up some quite exceptional warriors.
The ritual that's shown in the cave paintings.
Correct.
But those things don't appear to be human in any way. What happened?
Well, it happens that there is a particular species of snail, which is incidentally the reason we were here at Lake Bosomtwi in the first place.
Whose genome has changed through eating the algae brought here by the meteorite.
Yes, exactly. The algae may have been carrying a virus, which, over a relatively short period of time, triggers a rapid genetic mutation in a species. There are supporting cases. On the Indonesian island of Flores, they found the fossilized remains of a very small but adult human who was a genetic successor to Homo erectus. All evidence suggests this subspecies of dwarves evolved in only a few generations as a result of their isolated environment and in response to the narrow, low-ceilinged cave systems of the region.
An unbelievable evolutionary step.
Relative to conventional evolution, this process really did take place at the speed of light.
As with the Asambosam.
Possibly. Perhaps, as with the snail and the algae, the virus is the explanatory factor across all these examples.
How far does this go?
Perhaps the shaman knew that the algae possessed some form of mutational capability and raised his warriors on it. The terrifying result you've witnessed firsthand.
Then these warriors are designed with the sole purpose of keeping outsiders like us away.
That is my interpretation, yes.
And what about this disease they carry?
That, alas, is one of the questions I cannot currently answer. The Asambosam themselves appear to be immune to it. Perhaps it's a further defense mechanism.
Do you think that they killed anyone?
No, at least not directly. The evidence so far suggests they were designed to keep potential aggressors at bay, not to actively eliminate them.
So what now? As snail research goes, Professor, this story is more sensational than most.
That may well be the case.
But?
The shaman and the Ashanti have only been acting in the best interests of their people and in perceived self-defense.
And that justifies their turning children into monsters?
We don't have to approve morally. But does morality apply in the case of survival? Doesn't every nation do reprehensible things every day in the name of survival? Clearly, we are not the first Westerners to come here, and I doubt the intentions of all such visitors are as benign as our own. In this special case, I have to ask myself, even as a scientist, is knowing the answers more important than doing the right thing?
Answers are what we're paid for.
Then I hope never to see the day that we run out of questions. Do what you think is right.
So, I have to make a decision. Should I go ahead and publish the story? In retrospect, publishing the Asambosam story really wasn't such a good idea. At least, not for the Asambosam themselves. There was a gold rush. Scientists, journalists, tourists, even big game hunters. The military looked on and did nothing. The few game wardens were helpless. When mass demonstrations back in the West finally delivered human rights for the Asambosam, it was almost too late. But at least the last Asambosam had been freed from the clutches of unscrupulous zoo owners and show people. They've been moved to rehabilitation stations, where they're being prepared for their return to their original habitat. The Basumtwi has been declared a World Heritage Site and Nature Reserve, monitored by an international protection force. Oh yes, and as for me, well, the story made me a small fortune, some amount of fame, and a not-so-small sailboat. In fact, a vast one. So, not such a bad ending after all. I simply didn't have the heart. May a cloak of silence remain forever over the existence of the Asambosum. Freedom really is so much more important than anything else. Talking of freedom, that's something I can also enjoy limitlessly, though sadly not on my little sailboat. When I got back to Hamburg without a single line of copy, my editor flipped and bounced me back onto the street. Whether or not he managed to get over the small heart attack that followed, I'm afraid I don't know. And frankly, I don't give a damn. It's time for me to drop by on Max in Berlin again. Perhaps he'll finally even introduce me to his beloved Nina. From the way he went on about her in Indonesia, I don't think they'll be apart for too long. And maybe he'll have a fabulously lucrative job for me and get that sailboat back on track.